we were both Black girls in Switzerland. So on a daily basis, I like think and I'm like, y'all really had me out here thinking I was mid. Like y'all really
Literally.
think I was mid. Like,
Oh my gosh.
no.
Literally the wounds, like for
Yeah.
no reason. And we were so cute. We still are so
I
cute.
know. I was like, excuse me, hello.
Welcome to Walk the Talk, a show where I get to have conversations with fellow curious creatives in entertainment and highlight the work of Black women across film, television, music, and fashion industries. We'll talk about getting started, creative purpose, lived experience, influences, and a bunch of other stuff you may have been curious about. Today, I am joined by multi-hyphenate singer, songwriter, actress, Beth Million from projects like Sick on Peacock, Showtime's Flatbush, Misdemeanours, and HBO's And Just Like That, just to name a few. Thanks so much, Beth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So before we get started, just curious, so what is a song or movie or show that you're currently obsessed with?
Ooh, this is a good one. So I'm gonna save all of you guys my like reality TV show rant because I'm just obsessed with reality TV. I think that it's such a great like societal like what do you
Experiment?
call it? Yeah, like it's such a incredible like social experiment to be able to like watch people live their real lives while also being perceived at the same time. Like I feel like a lot of people feel like that on a daily basis, but that's for another podcast. But I feel like something that I recently binged and have been obsessed with is Bel-Air, like the reboot.
Oh,
Um,
how do you find the
yeah,
reboot compared to the original?
so I love the original. I watched it like a long time ago. I already binged it, but and I already have like my own preconceived like judgments when I go into reboots. But I think what they did with this reboot was so interesting of like using a different genre completely to tell that story. And
Mhm.
I think they did it so beautifully. I feel like they really didn't cut corners into like really delving into like the complexities of each character that I feel like you don't get the chance to do in like comedy sitcoms. So
Very true.
really grounding these characters in like their real life complexities. And I think they do that so beautifully and modernizing it. All the actors are incredible. And yeah, it's just something that I find really, really awesome.
Diving in, can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Ooh, okay. So I'm a Pisces, as I most
Starting with the most important.
it's literally the most important Pisces spokesperson ambassador. I'm a multi-hyphenate artist. I feel like I am interested in a lot of different mediums of art and exploring my own messages and ethos as a person through these different mediums of art, be it through songwriting, be it through acting, be it through writing, and like performing. And yeah, what else am I? Oh, I'm Ethiopian. I was born in the US. I grew up in Switzerland with Sean.
Yeah,
Um, yes, shout out international third nation kids.
I know.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So repping the diaspora everywhere I go forever. And yeah.
Do you find that side of having that third culture kid background has influenced the way that you approach the arts in general?
Definitely. I feel like for a long time, it was like a tool to assimilate, I think. That got very limiting and became a box in its own right because I felt like I couldn't ever be all of the versions of myself at once because it's such a nuanced experience. But I do feel like now as I get older and I'm able to like really dive into like the different perspectives that growing up in an international like environment has helped me to do. I feel like it allows me to be able to approach a lot of the different topics that maybe I'm exploring from so many different perspectives and angles. And it's really like fulfilling for me because it allows me to kind of sift through all of the different realities that I deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Why do you think the performing arts? What kind of drew you to it? What was the calling? Was it something that you were always interested in as a kid?
Yes. I mean, I feel like I always say I was a natural born entertainer in terms of like even with my family and stuff. I loved making other people laugh. I loved just connecting with people in general. And I was a very eccentric child. Yeah, I feel like my first love with the stage came with musical theater. And there was something so beautiful about being able to experience humanity on so many different fronts and mediums of art at the same time, like singing, acting, and dancing, and using that, like using your whole body, your voice, like all at the same time. And yeah, I just feel like I found a newfound power and confidence when I was on stage and I had the opportunity to be seen, which felt like it wasn't necessarily something that I feel like I had control over before.
For sure.
Um, yeah, and so I feel like that really helps fuel my confidence from a place of intention and like really being like, well, if I'm going to be seen, like what do I want to represent? Who do I want to represent? And yeah, it was something that as I got older, I started to realize that I actually had a lot more to offer and to say outside of just wanting a seat at the table, if that makes sense.
Amen. That does make sense. I feel
Yeah.
like it's definitely an experience that's, as you said, like as we get older, seeing the value in your own voice and really understanding everything that it is that you have to offer based on like your background, your skills, but also the things that you're passionate about and what makes you passionate about them is so
Yeah.
unique to
Yeah.
yourself rather than to other people. And yeah,
Yeah.
finding your voice is definitely huge. I mean,
Yeah.
did you begin writing songs when you were young? Is there any early
Mm.
you can remember?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I wrote really bad songs like in between. Like I was like one of those people who'd like write songs about like random things that I was doing, but I never really took it seriously because I like growing up from an immigrant family, I feel like I like there was a path that I felt like I had to follow and I had to find something that I'm passionate about, but something that was safe at the same time. And I saw musical theater as the most like academically adjacent path that I could find. Like I'm like, you know what, you do the best that you can, you get into one of the top schools, and then you get on Broadway, and it's like a salary job. Like it's like the simplest, what I mean, path. And so like when it came to like songwriting and all those other things, like obviously I wanted to be a pop star so much, but like what kid doesn't want to? So I don't think I ever really took that seriously until I honestly needed a break from musical theater and I did a semester abroad in London because I really like felt like I was getting all the skills that I needed at NYU in terms of like training, in terms of the training that I was getting. But still, even in the middle of New York, even in my program, I felt like nobody could really know where to put me or fit me, even with all these skills, even with like, doing great work in classes and upholding a certain standard for my work, there still wasn't those spaces or those roles created for me to be able to really feel like I had like my moment, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so it was a part of me that almost gave up on that. And when I studied abroad in London, I was just like, whatever, I'll take a psychology course, like see what's gonna happen. And I really like missed that creative outlet that I think I had been fostering even within my musical theater program. And I was like, you know what, I have this song that I wrote, like let me just like do an open mic or something. Like I'm in the middle of London, like nobody's gonna know me, like it's fine. And I did it, and I still have this video on my Facebook, and it was the first time I performed like my very first single, Dirty Little Secret.
Mhm.
Like and it was crazy because it's like this alt version of it, and like when you see like the end product, you're like, oh my god, this is so different. But you
The
can just see me,
origins.
yeah, you can just see me start off so nervous, and then as I'm like the feeling of standing on the stage that I'm so familiar with, but saying my own words and something that truly resonated with me and that is my experience. I feel like you just see me like a feeling so full, like or filling myself up in that way. And it was just like it's really heartwarming for me to be able to look back on that and see that moment where it like clicked for me that I'm like, you know what, make your own table, like make your own table. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to continue this when I go back to NYU. And I kept doing it. And it was something that always helped me, grounded me in my agency as a storyteller and as an artist, outside of the roles that you're given or the opportunities that you're given.
For sure. Like really
So,
being able to like branch out creatively and like see what it is that you can do, really
yeah,
like stretch your legs and
yeah,
figure it out.
Instead of
and then
sitting and
find
waiting for
passion.
somebody to believe in you, like,
For sure. Yeah,
you
I
know
feel
what I
like
mean?
to be creative in general, I think a lot of it is dependent on other people, but until you do believe in yourself, it's hard to kind of get other people to believe in you for sure, for sure.
100%, 100%.
And you said that so going to London was kind of the thing that let you step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. How has chasing your career professionally, both as an actress and as a singer, compared to what you thought it would be?
I honestly had no idea how I was going to make it work. I'll be honest. And I don't think anybody else who knew me and loved me, like my family, my friends, really knew what that would look like, because nobody else in my family had ever done anything creative, like actually as a professional career. So I really had no expectations other than the fact that, like, I hope I'm good enough. And that was really hard the first couple of years, because I still had this, I was still giving a power to somebody else to tell me that I was enough in some sort of way, you know, which made like the first couple of years in New York super difficult for me, because firstly the adjustment, and then like everything, lifestyle, like friends, like career focus, like, you know, but yeah, I think over time I started to realize that I couldn't follow anybody else's path, because nobody else like me existed, just like nobody else like you existed. And the only way that I'm going to be able to be fulfilled in this industry and really look back on it and not regret anything is if I exhaust all of my options and I do everything that I can on my end, instead of trying to do like only the right thing according to somebody else, if that
For
makes
sure.
sense.
No, definitely
Yeah.
does. And I feel like so maybe taking that first step of, it still was a part of like a safe sort of plan for you, but Geneva is very much a far cry from like the bustling city of New York. Do you think that's
Right.
the choice to go to New York was kind of that first step towards, you know, putting your foot out there and chasing whatever you could and exhausting all possibilities?
100%, 100%. And I knew that it had to be elite. I knew that I wouldn't be able to get to the places that I needed to get or be the person I needed to be if I took it one step at a time in that way. I was
Yeah,
like, I need to, and so I threw myself out of the nest, you know, and I feel like I felt like I was falling for a long time without realizing that I started kind of gliding on my own, right? And it took a while till I really felt like I was flying and I was like actually navigating where I was going and going back up, you know what I mean? So, and I feel like just being around such a diverse like community and fearless, the kind of fearless artists that you find in New York was something that really inspired me. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
people take risks, and the whole like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. It comes more so from like the oversaturation of everybody's individuality of what they're doing. Like it's gonna force you to be like, who am I for who I am? Because fronting isn't going to work in New York. Like you
Right.
can't front, you can't, you know what I mean? You can't schmooze your way into anything. Like you really have to know who you are. And it took me a long time to be able to do that, because growing up in a very white environment, I was so used to thinking like it's assimilate or die. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just be the version of yourself that this person understands, can understand. You know, we were both Black girls in Switzerland, so
Yeah.
that'll really fuck you up in a lot of ways. As grateful as we are for the opportunities we have,
A
but
100%. And I find it so interesting because, like, in a lot of ways, I didn't even realize how much it had impacted me because I had always still been in like such
in
white
there.
communities. Like, even
Yeah,
after I left Switzerland and I went
yeah,
to like Canada for university, I was
yeah.
again in this like super white space. And
Right,
I was like,
yeah. It's like this idealized post-racial society too, which like
yeah.
does not help anyone, because it
Hmm.
just makes you feel like you're just gaslighting yourself
Yeah,
about,
you 100% feel like the problem. And you're like,
yeah,
so it is me then? And it's like, no,
yeah.
no. You're
No,
just in
I'm
the wrong
on
space.
a daily basis. I like think, and I'm like, y'all really have me out here thinking I was mid. Like, y'all really
Literally.
have me thinking I was mid. Like,
Oh my gosh,
no,
literally the wounds, like for
yeah.
no reason. And we were so cute. We still are so
I
cute.
know. I was like, excuse me, hello.
Like what I'm hearing is that New York kind of changed the way that you thought about like showing up in yourself,
Yeah.
but also the
Yeah.
creative industries and like what it meant to be in the
Yeah.
creative industries.
Yeah, and the pace, like the pace, I always say like living in New York is like living inside of a battery, like literally like there, it's just like electric, like it's just there's stuff happening all the time, and it can be really overwhelming, especially the first couple of weeks when you're adjusting from the lifestyle in Switzerland, which is like so slow, it's safe, it's so nice. And look, I have so much respect for that. I'm so glad that that is my home in its own right, because when I come back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in rehab, like this is
Yeah.
great. You
You're
know what
just
I
like
mean?
watching the trees,
Like I'm
listening to
like
the
not the
water, the little
yeah,
old
like
people are walking.
I'm like there's silence in my head for the first time in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like it just really helped kickstart me and was that burst of energy and like source of energy that I needed in order to really like push myself.
Would you say that there are any artists or creators who have particularly influenced your creative voice as you've been finding it either before going to New York or while you were in New York?
Mm, that's interesting. I feel like there were a lot of people who when I came to New York, I feel like is when I really started delving into like Lauryn Hill and the kind of artistry that she did. And she really inspired me as a songwriter.
Mm,
I feel like I really respected the honesty and the truthfulness and the almost like lessons that she was giving in these messages. And I felt like that really resonated with the way that my family and my ancestors like share love. It's like they share wisdom, you know? And so that was something that like I really like. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is like my favorite album of all time. Sonically, I feel like I mean, I was such a big like Rihanna fan, like when I was younger, and there's something about her confidence that I really wanted to exude, you know what I mean? Usher, I feel like I was such a big fan of like 90s, 2000s songs, like that feel good feeling that just like of like anthems.
right.
Nostalgic like anthems and like those kind of paired together with that honesty and those lessons, I feel like is something that really resonated with me and that I followed through. And then as an actor, I really winged it. All honest to God, like really didn't, I could have never imagined that I would end up like on a TV show or a movie stream. Like I never seen anybody like me. And maybe other people would meet me and be like, yeah, I've seen people like you. But I think for who I am and the experience that I had, I never got to see that growing up. And so I really was like, well, then that means that I have to be the best person in the room because I need to get them to be like, well, we have no other option. Like I have to prove something, which
Mm,
was definitely difficult because you never get as far trying to prove something to other people. You know
right.
what I mean? But it was something that film, as opposed to theater, allowed me to like see my progress in real time instead
Mm,
of rely on other people like professors and other people who would be like, oh, you did good in this, and attach it to a validation of something. Like I could really see my work and be like, well, if I wasn't chosen, I wasn't chosen, but I can see my work and I know that what I did was great. You know what I mean?
yeah, being like having something tangible to look back on and
Yeah.
also
And
like to see your
self-assess.
progress. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And self-assess. Yeah.
So obviously we were talking about this before, but as a Black woman in the creative fields, you can sometimes get like either pigeonholed or tokenized or forgotten altogether.
Mhm.
So how did you
Mhm.
make sure when you were starting out and still now to get your voice heard?
That's an interesting question because I feel like you can't force somebody to listen to you because that happens on the receiving end. But you can do the work to know yourself well enough to know what it is that you want to say and trust yourself to say it,
Mm,
if that makes sense. So when it came to the opportunities, like I had said before, that like I really just like exhausted all of my opportunities and whatever that looked like in just music, in acting, in horror films. I never thought I'd end up in horror films, you know what I mean? But like I was like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go. Let's see that. And like being able to like explore that and I think coming at it from a collaborative point of view is something that maybe like my international perspective has helped me figure out a way of communicating these things without me responding from a defensive point of view.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And that's also valid because the experience is valid, but I think I was able to feel like I was being heard better when I tried to come at it from a collaborative point of view of like, let's make this as best as possible. And to make it as best as possible, I have information that I can help make it better
Right.
and often. And sometimes it's not going to be accepted, and that's okay. That's why it's a collaboration when you're making a film with other people, when you're, you know, but I think that's what I love about my own music so much, is that I'm like, there is always a place that I can create exactly what I want to see in the world. So then whenever I'm doing these other jobs and stuff like that, it doesn't feel like my entire identity is riding on them. I
For sure.
have my own path that I will continue to say what it is that I need to say in whatever way. You know what I mean?
For sure. When it comes to things like collaborating, whether that's, you know, a producer, other
Mhm.
musicians, a brand, or for a music video, what is one of the most important aspects that you consider when looking in to collaborate with someone?
Check your ego at the door. Check your ego at the door. It's so important. And like at the end of the day, like don't for like be in the moment, like be in the moment and be present. Don't think about the product that you're trying to create. Like just be in the space with the other person and try to tap into their own artistry. And the reason I say check your ego at the door is that you don't know how you're going to surprise yourself. So if you come into the with your ego, it's going to be like an armor that prevents any sort of anything else outside of what feeds that ego immediately. You
Right.
know what I mean? Instead of like
Yeah.
just living in the process and letting it become what it's going to become. So I think whenever I'm working with my own like music, or like the types of people that I work with, like on the producer music side, there are always people that I would be friends with regardless of if we're making music or not. Because they're people that I have connected with, because it's such an intimate thing, you know what I mean? That
Yeah,
you want to have people that you can trust and that really are trying to understand you with your music. And that's the only way that you can really make an authentic collaboration.
for sure. I think that's super interesting what you're saying about ego as well, because I feel like a lot of the time ego can also come from like sort of a fear of failure,
Mm,
or like a fear of like being seen in a way that you don't want to be seen. So,
definitely.
um, in that sort of vein, what would you say motivates you in the face of like either setbacks or fear or like imposter syndrome? What do you kind of tell
Mm.
yourself to push past that and just see what you can do?
That's really interesting. I feel like imposter syndrome is something you can never really get rid of, like permanently. You know, it's something that you have to make peace with, of the fact that like, how can you be an imposter if you are where you are?
Mm,
You've literally gotten this opportunity. You know what I mean? And like I'm a believer in that, like what is for you will be for you, you know? And so if this opportunity is there, like this is supposed to be mine. So whatever that looks like, it's not up to me to like make it something other than whatever it is that I make it in the moment, you
right.
know.
Just
But it's
trusting
definitely,
yourself to actually
yeah,
like
trusting myself that whatever it is going to be part of the story. It's going to be part of the lesson that I need to learn in this opportunity. But it's definitely hard, especially in the acting world, because it's such a waiting game. It's like you put your all out there, and then it's up to somebody else to tell you that if you got it or not. And there's a lot of waiting time, and that can like you can really drive yourself crazy. So like for example, like there was the Good Lawyer was going to be picked up, but then there was a whole strike last year. But that would have been like such a big thing for my career. And so I was really holding on to that as like an opportunity last year. I was like, this is it. This is going to be it. And that never helps anyone, because then you're in a state of paralysis and waiting for like, I think for like 9 months, and you can't make art from that place. Like, I felt like I was just like stuck in purgatory. And it helped me like really break down the mold or idea that I had of this industry, that you know, that it is like a finesse, and like it is like you, once you're in the door, like you're good. But I just realized it really is an exploration, and it's like you walk through the same doors, exit the doors, leave, find a different door kind of thing. And I think I had to kind of break down in that way, and have like my reality kind of shattered when it didn't get picked up later on in the year, to be like, you know what, I'm still here. I'm still living, I'm still surviving. And it allowed me to like create a different perspective of how I wanted to move through this.
for sure. And I think in the creative industry and also just in life in general, like opportunities present themselves in so many different ways, you know, and I feel like
Mhm.
the closing of one door, maybe, yeah, it's not the opening of another door, but then
Yeah,
as they say, like a window opens, you know, or you
yeah,
create an
yeah,
opportunity for yourself, or you find something else that's interesting to you. So
yeah.
I feel like, yeah, it definitely is not a straightforward path in the creative field. It's definitely very
It allows you to
winding. Yeah,
refocus on other things and actually look away from just, if you're just looking at one door, you're gonna, like, your peripheral vision is gonna be gone.
for
Like, you're not gonna be
sure.
able to see anything else, you know?
And I feel like creatively as well, as you were saying, that kind of makes you stagnant because then you're only thinking about a certain way forward or a certain way that you have to be or a certain
Yeah.
um, project or product rather than thinking about like, okay, how else can I express myself
Yeah.
creatively and like where else is opportunities for me to be growing?
Yeah, and you put your whole future on that door that has really nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
Whether it opens or not has nothing to do with you. It's actually just like the circumstance of the world. Like, it actually doesn't have to do with you. And like, don't make it have to do with you. Otherwise, you're gonna personalize something that, you know, that has
yeah.
nothing to do with you. But yeah.
Can you walk me through a little bit of the audition process for the roles that you have gotten? And do you have any bad auditions that you can share?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes to both. I feel like I graduated in the pandemic, so 2020. So everything pretty much went virtual. So it was all virtual self-tapes that I was doing. And those are hard because it's like you can't even get a vibe of like if they like you or not in the moment. So you really are just sending these videos out into the ether. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that like when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, somebody out there has like my first like 10 auditions, and that's so upsetting to me in my home world. But yeah, no, so you just like send it out, and then if it goes well, then they'll ask maybe for like a callback or a retape. And then if they like that as well, like they'll send you some notes and then you do the retape. And then if they like you after that, then they'll do a chemistry read. So that is also over Zoom now. Like before they used to like fly people out and like have that chemistry. And so that's how I got sick. And that was just a crazy, I did not think I was gonna get it because I was like, this is a Miramax movie. Like I haven't booked anything. So I'm like, whatever. And I had another project that I got really close on. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Let me just like balls to the wall kind of thing. And it was really cool because I just like it felt like the more I lowered the stakes, the easier it got for me to be myself in these
Right.
moments instead of feeling like I was putting on something every time I was going into the room. And yeah, so that's like how I started getting those. And just like that, I already talked about as well in a different podcast, but I didn't know I was auditioning for And Just Like That until I was like one of the final picks. And I was just like, oh, and there's nothing I could do at that point. So I was like,
Right.
well, God's plan. But yeah, bad auditions all the time. Oh my gosh. Like I feel like you have to know when it's bad, and then you have to self-assess to be like, okay, what made this bad? Like,
Mm.
oh yeah, I didn't do enough work on this. I thought I could like cut corners in this way. How does that make me feel? Okay, so it's not just like did I actually have the time to be able to give more to it? If I didn't, that's all I could do in that moment. If there was, then it's like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and start to figure out the next one. Like we'll get the next one, and just try to learn from those opportunities instead of beating yourself up, because that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, like learning how you actually work and like learning what
Yeah.
makes you better for sure. So what do you kind of look for in a character that makes you want to sign on to a project? Or when you're reading like character descriptions, or you're like, oh, I think I could do that. That's kind of like me.
I mean, like I said, I really just like balls to the wall for everything and like hope that they see something in me. So I'm not that picky unless there's something that I really don't feel comfortable doing, or I'm like, this isn't really an experience I can speak to in that way, or I don't feel comfortable speaking to that.
Hmm.
But things that I really like are things that are just like very layered, and things that allow me to bring in other aspects of my identity and personality, and like hobbies outside of just acting that I can bring specificity to. And yeah, so I feel like projects that just like characters that just have like a lot more depth, you know what I mean, or wisdom. I feel like I often am drawn to like a lot of these characters that have a lot of wisdom and a power to be able to share. but it's also, you know, sometimes they send me things that are like specifically looking for somebody who looks like me, and sometimes they send me open ethnicity things, and
Mm.
I'm like, I need to personalize this for myself. Like I'm going to do this as if I am a Black woman, and like as if it said Black woman, and how that affects the script. Otherwise, it's like you end up like just cutting out like 50% of your own humanity, you know?
Yeah, your own personality. You become like just a
Yeah.
shell, so it's kind of saying word.
Yeah, you're an experience. Exactly. Exactly.
To get signed as an actress, you had said in another interview that you performed at an industry night showcase for NYU
Mhm.
students. What would you say to other actors, musicians, or creatives in general who are just really worried about putting their work out there and like actually being seen?
Mm. I feel like the same way as like when you are signed with an agent, you got to put it all out there. You know, at the end of the day, if you don't back yourself and what you're capable of doing, you can't expect anybody else to back you in that way. And so I would really say like take the time to really practice putting your best work out there, instead of just getting seen.
Mm,
Because then you want to be seen as like with the best thing that you can present. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Otherwise, you get in your own way. And sometimes it feels like you're skipping to step three before you can really solidify something that you're going to need for the rest of your career.
Right. So kind of making sure that if you are taking that leap, you're really putting your best foot forward and like fully
Yeah.
fully
And
commit.
like you're, you know, yeah, like you are really prepared. You've chosen the size that you want. You're also exercising, reaching out and looking for different opportunities to showcase your work, or like even posting like your stuff out there. It's not just, I feel like in this content age, people are just like, I just need to be seen. I need to go viral, but whatever. But it's more so about like the quality of what you are putting out there. So then you can really back yourself in
Mm,
terms of what you can offer, instead of like, this is my biggest dream. Cause they're like, that's not going to help me do my job, and that's not going to help you do your job. You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, like really being able to make sure that when you are seen, because, as you said, in this content age, like even if we do put so much out and we don't know if it's necessarily being seen, like
Yeah.
that is what people are taking to be
Yeah.
your voice and what you stand for and what you
Yeah.
represent. So really
Yeah.
making sure that you like
Yeah.
trust that and also you stand by that and you're actually
Yeah.
like passionate about that for sure.
Yeah.
And people will take you more seriously
Yeah. 100%.
if you take yourself seriously.
Period.
You had talked about this a little bit, but after having starred in, two horror films, which are completely night and day in terms of tone from shows like And Just Like That and Flatbush Misdemeanours, what's
Yes.
kind of the experience on set or even just before or just in general? How did the experiences kind of differ between doing horror and doing comedy?
Well, firstly, for horror, it takes so much out of you physically, because a lot of these are like night shoots. And you're exhausting so much of your emotional energy in these scenes when those like cameras are rolling, or even when they're not, to get prepared, that it's just as important to learn how to cool down after a day on set as it is to like warm up and get ready to be on those high emotional peaks. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I feel like with comedy and things like And Just Like That and stuff, and Just Like That was a really specific because it's like I'm working alongside all of these veterans. So I had to deal more so with my own nerves and my own imposter syndrome, and being like, there's a reason that I'm here. And if I just put my best work out there, that's all that I can do, and just be myself. And like just not try to do too much. Just go and do what you're supposed to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I feel like a lot of people like talk up the benefits of networking, but you have to know when and where that is useful and valuable. And it's supposed to be, networking is supposed to be organic. It
Yeah.
cannot be like, you know what I mean, forced or any type of way. And you don't have to be best friends with anybody like on set. Like it doesn't have to be more than that, but just like be yourself and take the time to like really decompress in your own trailer, and like really center yourself, because there's so much going on. There's so many people, you know, you're always on a tight schedule, you're always late. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're always late on set. And so like there is like a lot of pressures outside, that the best thing that you can do is just to keep your cool and know when to step away and to really like center yourself. So then you can do your best work to then therefore help everybody else do their best work and just be an easy person to work with at the end of the
For
day.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is so, in terms of like networking and things like that, it can be really like such a daunting task. I feel like when people are told, especially in the creative industries, like everything is about who you know, and the
Yeah,
task of networking can be so terrifying, but really it's like if you show up, you do your work well, you're a good person to work with, that is how people will remember you, and that's like they will think of you, you know? Will
exactly.
think of you
And
for other
yeah.
people, they will think of you for their own work, and that's
Mhm.
sort of the network. That's how the network
Yeah. And
grows.
it's really important to like it's like to network with people that you naturally gravitate towards. Otherwise, you're networking and connecting with people that you're not supposed to connect with. And
That's
that's how
true.
you get into situations where like, there's unnecessary beef
Yeah,
on whatever end, or like you end up in a circle that you don't feel like yourself in or whatever, you know what I mean?
definitely. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I have definitely had that experience myself of like, okay, you're getting these opportunities, you're having the chance to like do work, but then at the same
Mm.
time, because of who you're working with, it goes back to, as you said, the collaborative process. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes it is really like who you're working with can impact what type of work you can create, and whether or not
Yeah.
you're going to be super creative with that person and could take that project to whatever it could have been is like very dependent on, again, yeah, if you can be yourself in that environment, if you can share your ideas, if they can share their ideas with you, and it's like an
Yeah.
open collaborative process rather than being sort of like a, okay, who knows more, who knows more.
Exactly. Like it needs to be a safe space for you to to create your best work, you know?
For sure. Well, you were touching on this a little bit more, but could you tell me about your pre-performance routine, whether that's getting ready to go on stage and perform or getting ready to shoot a scene? What does that pre-performance routine look like for you?
Hmm. I feel like it depends depending on the medium, but I do, and this is gonna seem really corny, but guys, like I wrote these songs. Sometimes I listen to my own music because I feel like they're so intimately like taken from my journals, and they're these affirmations for me to remind myself that these are actual words that I created instead of just thinking them as like a message to the world. They're also a message to myself sometimes. It like
Mm,
in a way, especially with cycles. And so sometimes I'll listen to those songs and be able to like recognize how far I've come and that this is just like a step in that process. But affirmations are really important to me, really centering myself, connecting myself with like some sort of like higher power, like my own ancestors, and be like, you know what, for me as a diaspora, in terms of my family and my heritage, like I am, I'm doing enough. I'm doing enough. Like I'm taking such a massive leap and step in all of these ways, and to just like celebrate that, the
mm,
fact that, I'm taking that and just try to like tap into um, that ancestral like power and yeah. And then I love some tea. We love a little ginger tea with some honey to loosen up the cords. And oftentimes I'll like call my mom too, because she's just like my biggest fan. Like I'll call my sister or my mom or my dad or my boyfriend. And, I think like those people who are closest to you, like they really know what you need to hear oftentimes. And they know how to like call bullshit on your stuff, on your
yeah.
negative thoughts. So it's just, yeah, just remembering that there are people out there that are like just wanting you to succeed, and that actually maybe the world wants you to succeed. Like maybe this is not a test, maybe this is not an exam,
Yeah.
you
I think
know?
that's so huge what you're saying about like ancestry and like really remembering kind of everything that's kind of led us up to this point. That's something that's been huge for me in the past year as well, especially when it comes to like finding your voice creatively, because
Yeah,
I think the arts is very, the arts is touchy because it's like, is it important? Is it, is this like um I don't know, work that's changing the world? Are you saving
yeah,
lives? Like,
yeah, yeah,
especially with everything that's going on in the world
yeah,
at
in the world,
times, it
100%.
it can feel hard to be in the arts and to see value in yourself, especially as a Black woman, I feel like. So really remembering everything that has led to this point, like everything,
Yeah.
and being so like grateful in it and understanding how all of that informs like who you are
Mhm.
and what your voice becomes,
Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
yeah, as again, you're sharing your voice to share it to the world, but you're also sharing it for yourself and to be a reminder
Yeah.
to yourself, whatever you create,
Yeah. And it's,
really
yeah,
coming from you.
exercising a freedom. Yeah. And exercising a freedom that you should never take for granted,
Yeah.
and that like your own ancestors have fought so hard for you to be able to even do. And the fact that you're exercising that is a great thing,
Yeah, it's
you
awesome.
know?
So I'm curious, when you sing, now that you play with a band, how has that sort of changed the way that you think about music and the performing experience?
I feel like from the beginning, I feel like from conception, because oftentimes like I'm the person who like writes the lyrics by myself.
Hmm.
Um, and so the minute that I bring it to somebody else, it becomes collaborative. The minute I bring it to somebody else, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like that whole check your ego at the door and surprise yourself as to like what's going to come out of it instead of going into it with like a artistic perspective where you're like, I want this to be the definition of my own art. Like I want to be making all the call the shots or whatever, because it allows you to really be able to experiment and explore in real time. And that's always like the most beautiful thing to be able to watch, as an audience member. And so I feel like I love playing with a band because I love being able to like the synergy that goes on with everybody else on stage where you're in a real time just like jamming like really and being like find different things in the song, different moments, like sharing those things. We're like, this is not what we practice, but this is kind of sick, okay, let's keep
Right.
going. Or it's like, girl, you're talking too much. Like my keyboardist Antonio, like he's a really good friend of mine. He's like, I always say, I'm like, well, it's okay, guys, I tend to ramble when I'm on stage, so I was like, it's okay. Antonio will just play me off. Or like Connor will just play me off if I start talking, and then I'll just start the song. You know what I mean? So it's just something that it makes it so much more organic, and it just feels like a moment to connect instead of a moment to present. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And do you feel that performing with a band do you feel as nervous being on stage with other people rather than being on stage by yourself?
I feel so much less nervous when I'm on stage with other people because it's just like other people have your back. These are already like there's already been a vibe check. There's already a trust that has been established. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And it's like that community like trust of like I got you. Whatever happens, like we all got each other. You know what I mean? We all have the same intention going into this. You know what I mean? Which is why it can be really dangerous when you like see these stories where there's like beef that's going on and then you're trying to perform and then like, you know what I mean? Like that's not music. Like that's not really what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Do you find that that experience of being on stage with a band, it can be likened to when you used to perform musical theater and you'd be on stage with other performers and you kind of like you're in this together and when things go wrong, you kind of look at each other and you're like, but
Yes,
the show must go on.
yes, yes, 100%. Because you already know, look, the ensemble is the black girl's best friend. They love putting the black girl in the ensemble, okay? But yeah, that's something that I like, was able to like find really special about those experiences, even though I felt like it got very limiting very quickly. I will say that like it was something that really allowed me to feel like a part of a collective and like feel like whatever value that we were adding, you're able to find your own moments outside of like asking for permission to find those moments, you know what I mean? Or crafting them.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more organic. Yeah.
In another interview, you had said that unrealistic dreams sort of fuel your ambition. So I'm
100%.
wondering, are there any unrealistic dreams that you're currently gunning for?
Oh, yes, 100%. Delulu dreams forever, okay?
They come true,
Like
Lulu.
that's like absolutely. Yeah, I mean I have so many like I could just ramble for days, but I'm trying to not just start like saying things that I can't back up yet, but I
Listen,
definitely
they
have a
need to
lot.
be unrealistic, and then when you speak them, they become real.
Yeah, I would just love to be able to like start telling stories about my own heritage and like really being a showrunner and like writing a show and starring in my own show in that way. Like I wrote a pilot with one of my really good friends. That's like very much based on like an experience we both kind of shared. And like sending those out to like different like screenwriting competitions and stuff like that. That's something I definitely want to do. I would love to play like a musical biopic, like be like some like be in a biopic somehow for like some sort of jazz musician or something. I would love, you know, to be on Broadway. I'd love to go back into musical theater now that I'm not the same person that I used to be. And, you know, even who knows, maybe a jukebox musical with my own music. I don't know, but I just want to keep exercising the agency that I have in knowing my own story and excavating my own story and getting better at being able to produce art from those places of specificity and nuance. And I would just love to help give back to my own community, go back to Ethiopia and be able to like help create different routes and bring the arts and bring value to the arts in that way and storytelling. And yeah, there's just so many things. Connect the diaspora, the Pan-Africanism, like we need that, and just so many things that I want to do that I don't even know if I should make it unrealistic. I think it's just like I don't know if I'll ever have enough time in the world to be able to do all of those things,
Well,
but
life is long.
yeah, exactly. True. Let's hope. Yeah, like literally, God willing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've spent a lot of years strengthening my intention. And I feel like that helps me be able to show up as myself in whatever opportunity that I get and continue to push myself to um, believe that I have the power to create new avenues and that I don't have to rely on anybody else. But I'm willing to accept help from anywhere,
I
you know.
completely 100% understand. That's super awesome. And last question. This is kind of a hard question, but what is the most rewarding part to you about being a Black female creative in entertainment?
I think feeling that hmm, I'm creating time capsules for myself
Mm,
and for other people who need it at any given moment. I feel like it takes a lot of bravery to be able to be a work in progress in a world that is already not so accepting of Black women or as safe for Black women that it's something that helps me exercise my bravery and my confidence of being able to be a work in progress in front of everybody else and feel like I am enough
yeah.
regardless. So I feel like that is something that's really special to me, and it's something that is something that you are always going to be a work in progress for the rest of your life, and it's something that helps me live my life as happily as I can.
And it also helps you with kind of sending full force and jumping into every opportunity and not holding back.
100%.
So
100%. 100%.
thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was so nice. This is such a great check-in. I'm like, I don't even have to journal today.
Perfect. Yeah, this is actually, I will be billing you after
Like
this.
literally therapy session, like literally talk to my insurance.
Guys, you can catch Beth in Trim Season, a horror flick set on a marijuana farm, hiding a sinister secret in select theaters June 7th.
Yay.
Yay!